39, and this is my mini album using the collection Love Letters from Country Craft Creations. This collection is only available at Country Craft Creations, and I used it to make this heritage style album. The album measures 8.5 by 6.5, and it's got a hefty 3-inch spine. But again, because it is a heritage style album, I left lots of room for photos and mementos and memorabilia. I am a design team member for Country Craft Creations, and I will leave a link in the description box on where you can purchase this collection. I also used artisan cardstock in linen in natural color. The tutorial is done with the cover, the hinge, and then the pages, and then each page will go by and show you how to add the different flaps and folds. I suggest that you watch this all the way through, or at least watch each section all the way through and take notes as you go, and then go watch section by section to make it. It's just easier to follow. So without further ado, here is the tutorial for Love Letters. And again, I'll put a link in the description box for the walkthrough so you can see it all decorated. All right, we are going to start making the cover. So you will need 2 sheets of medium weight chipboard, 6.5 by 8.5, and you will need 1 piece 3 by 8.5 for the spine. So we're going to clear everything. And I'm going to be using this scoreboard, and I have these 2 spacers. They're 1-inch by 12-inch. They're available from Country Craft Creation, and they come in pretty handy for helping make the cover. And I am using a method called the lay flat cover method, and I was taught it by Tamara from Country Craft Creations. She also uses sheets of score tape to make the covers, and I see it wasn't pushed down there, so I'm going to grab my bone folder and make sure that score tape is down real well. I understand that it's important to get your score tape down because you don't want any air pockets. Air pockets are what will cause the whole thing to come undone. So I do my best to make sure I burnish it real well. All right, so I've got one of the spacers to the side and one to the top, and I have a piece of artisan cardstock in the ivory color, and this is cut 8.5 by 10.5. because this is 6.5 by 8.5. So you want it 1 inch on all 4 sides bigger. So I've got the cardstock pushed up against the side and the top, the spacers pushed up against the side and the top, and I'm going to put down my chipboard. I put it against the side, and then I'll put it against the top. And now you've got a perfect 1 inch all around. I'm going to take my bone folder and burnish real well. This bone folder, by the way, is called non-stick. I don't know if it's Teflon. They may not be able to call it Teflon. I don't know. But I have gotten this bone folder, and I got another one. This one for burnishing. But I find this is in my hand more often, and I use this for everything. It's got a nice point. It's got a nice angle. This has a good angle. You'll see me use it all the time. I got rid of 4 bone folders and I'm using this one. So anyhow, so here is the cover, and I'm taking the bone folder and pushing up against the side. I don't know if you can see. Yeah, you can. You can see now where the chipboard is. And just gently pushing up against the side. This will help start the creasing. I'll move my scoreboard and my everything out of the way. And then I'm going to push this down. I'll lay it against itself and burnish. Even these sides. I'll do the other side here. If you've never used artisan cardstock, you owe it to yourself to at least try it. It's an 87-pound weight. It's called artisan linen cardstock. It does have a texture to it, but it works really, really well for making cards, making mini albums. It just is a very good quality cardstock. All right, and now I'm going to take my bone folder and push down there and push down on this side too. I'll turn it over and burnish on the top. All right, now I'm opening it up, and you can probably see there are crease marks in the corner. I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to cut on those crease marks. Just going to cut straight across. And cut out all 4 of those squares. This lay flat cover method was developed by Tamara. I think she was on a cruise. Country Craft Creations has virtual and in-person retreats, and they used to have cruises. And on one cruise, there was a group of ladies that just were having a hard time using their hands that much. You know, sometimes if you have problems with your hands, it's hard to push down, like, you know, I take for granted. And so she devised this thinking this would be an easier method. Not only is it easier, but it does make a really nice album cover. All right, so now I'm going to take my scissors. I'm going to put one blade, the top blade, against this paper is folded, so it's against the chipboard. And I'm just going to miter the corner. Now you can't go too far because the chipboard will stop you from going too far. And after we're all done, you'll see what little pieces I have left. Sometimes you'll cut the corners of see, they're just teeny little pieces, not very much. You'll cut the corners and then you'll realize that you can see the chipboard beneath because you cut too much. This keeps you from doing it. Now I'm turning it over and cutting the corners on the other side. Okay, and again, very little slivers came off. Let's move this out of the way. All right, now I am using my liquid adhesive. I am using the Art Glitter from the Art Glitter Institute. It's called Art Glitter Glue. It doesn't have glitter in it. I'm cleaning this off. People keep remarking that is this a newfangled tip? No, it's not. It's an old-fangled tip. I've had it in my stash. I probably should get the newer tips, but I have like 10 of these in my stash from a long time ago. And, you know, I hate to throw this out and get something new, especially if this works. The newer ones, I will tell you, are much easier to clean. They have a long, thinner tip. It goes on the same way. You just put it in, you push it around. All right, I am taking some of the glue and laying some, and I'm sorry, you probably can't see it because the glue is white and this is white. But I'm just laying a bead of glue right next to the chipboard. Then I'm going to take some and putting it on the side. I'm going to do this side too, My theory is it gives the glue a second to soak into the paper. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what I believe. All right, I'm going to start with the first side. I'm taking my bone folder. You may see there's a point to this. So I'm going to push this point against the paper so it's pushing the glue against the chipboard. And it's flattening it out. I'm using my fingers to pull it down, and then I'm using the bone folder to help crease it, and then I'm going to burnish. So I like to burnish towards the outside corners, because that way if there's any excess glue, it's going to come out on the top and the bottom. All right, before the other glue dries, I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing. Push this, pull it, burnish, and I'm going to burnish that down real well. And then I'm going to do these two sides. So I'll add glue in that little channel next to the chipboard, and add some glue there. Do this one too. You could just do one side at a time with the glue if you work slow. And then I'll push this down. See how great this bone folder is? Okay. And then I'll come around to this side and do the same. There's a little glue seeping out here. I'm going to grab I'll show you what I have in a second. Just bear with me. So these are baby wipes that I have rinsed in water and let dry. Trying to rinse them in water to get the lint off. I don't know what brand it is, just because I had them in my stash for such a long time. I'm sure some are better than others. I don't think it necessarily needs to be an expensive brand, but just grab a couple if you have a friend with a baby. Rinse them out and double check, make sure they don't have much lint on them, and they come nice and clean. And you can use them for a while and then just obviously throw them out. I'm going to take the my chipboard and run my edge of my bone folder across, and that will give a nice crisp clean edge to the now covered chipboard. So done. Now I'm going to go ahead and do the other one. I'll do it on camera, but I will do it in fast motion, and you can follow along and do your other chipboard. Okay, now we've got the two covers. Now we're going to make the cover for the chipboard for the spine. For that you will need a piece of cardstock. So this is 3 by 8.5. So you need it 10.5 because you need 1 inch on the top and bottom. But you need 1.5 inches on the sides. So 1.5 inches plus 1.5 inches is 3 inches. So 3 inch plus 3 inches, 6 inches. So you'll need a piece 6 by 8.5. I hope I didn't do that too fast for you. I just didn't want to take too much time explaining that. All right, now this is a 1.5 inch spacer. So here is a 1.5 inch spacer, and that is going to be how we do the spine. And it's a little bit different, so don't work too far ahead. We'll go ahead, and I had pieces of score tape on there. And I use glue for almost everything else in the album, but I use score tape to put down the cover because that way the paper doesn't bubble up. All right, so I'm going to take this, I guess I'll turn it this way so you can see, and lean it against the 1.5, and the top goes to the 1, and there is 1.5 inch left on this side. So I am done with my spacers for now. So I am going to do the same thing as far as folding and burnishing. And I'll do the 1 inch on the top and 1 inch on the bottom as well. And you'll notice that we're not going to have squares on the corners, we're going to have rectangles. So you see, there's 4 rectangles. Now, there's 2 ways of doing this. Tamara from Country Craft Creations cuts off this whole rectangle piece. So that whole piece. Actually, I'll do it, I was going to do one that way and one the different way. I'll cut it, I'll cut one side one way, one the other. So we go up and we go down. Now it's really important that you don't go too far when you're cutting this. Now the way that she used to teach this is you go from corner to corner. And make it a trapezoid. And then what you do is you'll fold this over and glue this down. But now she just folds that over. And I think we're going to do it that way. And the reason being, let me see if I can grab a piece of just plain cardstock. So we're also going to cover this with a piece of cardstock. And when you cover it, I mean, even though we're going to trim this at an angle, when you cover it, it adds an extra layer here to start. So it's a little bulkier. When you do it this way, it's not as bulky. So we're going to do it that way. There are reasons why she changed how she did things. I guess trial and error. Like I change how I do things. I used to glue or tape a couple of pieces of cardstock together and then put down my cover, front cover, back cover, and spine piece all at once. And I've changed how I do that. I'm taking my larger scissors for this, just because that's a longer piece and this doesn't necessarily work. So I'm folding in that. I'm taking my scissors and leaning it up against the chipboard and cutting down. It cuts at an angle. I'll turn it over and do this piece. And then I'll do the same with this one over here. And the same with this over there. So again, I'm not cutting off very much, but just enough to make it so it folds nice and easy. I will take my glue and again go in the little channel right next to the chipboard. And I'm going to take my bone folder and work with the first one first, pushing up so the glue sort of squeezes in next to that chipboard. And now I'll do this one. And I'm just going to burnish that real well because I want that glue just to smooch over. All right, so that's that. Nice and flat. And now we will put this all together. Okay, so I have my two covers that are covered and the spine. Now the spine I'm going to work on just a little bit more. So you see there's you can definitely see where the chipboard ends and the paper is. I'm going to work on this side. I'm going to take a little bit of glue and just run a bead down this side. Not too much. You don't want it to be sopping wet. And then I'll take my handy dandy bone folder and push down so the paper is against the spine. I see some of it is seeping out. And just to make sure it's going to stick, I'll go with the bone folder that way and push it down again. So just to make sure you get a nice crisp, clean delineation from where the chipboard is and just where the chipboard ends. So now when you put it down, it's flat. The spine is bumped up on this side. So now what we'll do is I'm going to be taking the spine part and I'm going to take my cover and it's going to go here. But I want to put some glue down here. I don't want it to be so close that it seeps through, because what's going to happen is it's going to bend and open. So you want a little bit of movement. And because I can't draw a straight line, even with glue, I'm going to grab one of my spacers. And I'm going to put it on top of the spine. And I'm going to, you can't see it, but it's going to be about maybe 1/8 away from where the chipboard ends. Maybe 3/16. I'd say 3/16 is more accurate. Not quite 1/4 of an inch. And then I'm going to take my glue. I'm trying to do this one-handed. And I'm going to run a bead of glue like that. I got some seepage over there. Not the end of the world. So you see the glue? And then I'm going to add some more glue over here. Make sure you have a thin bead. This is probably too thick. I mean, it'll be okay, but try to keep a thin bead of glue there. I have some people use score tape, which you could do if you wanted to. All right, now I'm going to push the side of the spine and the top against the scoreboard. Going to move my cover until it just sits right where I need it to. It's pushed real close to the chipboard there. I'll turn it over. And work it with my bone folder. Make sure that glue is down real well. Okay, now I'm going to do the same for the other side. I'll put my spacer about 3/16 of an inch away. Run a thin bead of glue down. I'm a little further away on this, but it's not a big deal. Add some more. Make sure it's lined up. I still want enough room that I can line this piece up as well. So I push it down. And then I'll grab my bone folder. And work it in real good. All right, now I'm going to let it dry. I'm not going to move it at all. I'm just going to let it dry. So we'll put that aside. Let's talk about making the hinge. So when I'm determining how big my hinge needs to be, sometimes I know I want a certain number of pages. Other times I am not positive how many pages I want. I want to see how much room there is. So I will take a piece of scrap paper and make a couple of different hinges with different measurements. So this one is 1/2 inch for each of the hinges and 3/8 for the gusset. And I have 6 hinges. Now here is my book, and here I can play around and see. So if I do that, I have just about 1/2 inch, somewhere between 3/8 to 1/2 inch room on each side. So if I were to open the book, you see I have enough room to add lots of stuff to this. Then I tried it using 1/2 inch spaces with just, oh, I know. I did this with 7. I added a 7th page. So if I have 7 pages, I have 3/8 of an inch between it. And there's still a 3/8 of an inch gusset, which gives you a lot of room, but it depends on how much ephemera and how dimensional you're going to have your pages. This one is a 1/2 inch gusset and 1/2 inch hinge with just 6 pages. And again, this gives you, well, not quite 3/8 of an inch, a little over 1/4 of an inch, which is still okay, because usually in the front I could do a waterfall. The back page I almost always do a pocket with a flap, so I don't need too much room for that. Again, if you're making this with pictures in mind, base it on what pictures you have. I loosely know how I'm going to form my pages. I haven't got it set in stone, but I do know that I want a waterfall in the front. So what I'll do, and a small pocket in the back. So I'm going to use these measurements, 1/2 inch hinge, 1/2 inch gusset, because I also know that I'm going to have flaps and folds and some thicker embellishments here. So I would rather the 1/2 inch in between the pages and 6 pages rather than 7 pages. You could do 4 pages with 3/4 of an inch in between if you're going to get really bulky. I mean, you can determine what you want to do. I'm just showing you my method of doing it is to take a scrap of paper, play around with the measurements of the hinge so I know what I want to do. So I'm going to take a 12-inch piece of paper. The Pages are going to be 8 inches because the book is 8.5. Sometimes they allow more room, but in this case I'm going to do 8-inch pages. So I cut my hinge right at 8 inches. So I am going to start, and I wrote down where I need to start. I'm going to start at 2 and I'll end at 10.5 and score every half an inch. Start at 2, end at 10.5, and score every half an inch. Make sure you hold your paper so it's straight. If you allow your paper to get wonky, your hinge is going to not be straight, and then therefore your pages won't be straight. It's always the things that you don't see that are most important when you're putting a mini album together. All right, so I've got it scored, and now I'm going to fold. Now, in the past, I have used score tape. I am just going to use the liquid adhesive art glitter glue. I know it stays in because if you've ever tried to take apart a page that's dried, you know it's bonded with the layer below it. So I am not using score tape on this. I'm just going to use glitter glue. The first thing I want to do is fold between the 2 hinges. So each hinge is 1/2 inch, and you have to sort of keep track of where it's going to be here, since the hinge and the gussets are the same size. So we know that's a hinge, it's going to be a mountain, then there's a gusset, and then here's another set of hinges, so we'll fold again here. And we'll burnish. So here's the gusset, here's another set of hinges, we'll fold again there. There is the gusset, another set of hinges, I'll fold there. If it helps, you could make a note in pencil, but you have to put it in such a way that it's not going to show through. And after a while, you just sort of figure it out. And if you fold one the wrong way, it's no big deal. Just fold it the right way once you realize what your mistake is. All right, now I'm going to pull the paper. I guess what I should do is fold on where the gusset's going to be. I get ahead of myself sometimes. I've done it so long, I sort of do it without really thinking about it. It's important again to keep it straight. So you see I'm making sure it's going to be straight on there. And again, I'm using the Artisan cardstock from Country Craft Creations. This is 87 pound weight, but it folds so beautifully. It works really well for hinges as well. Once you've trained this paper to go where you want it to go, it's very easy to work with. You have to be the boss of it. You have to tell it exactly where you want it to go. All right, now I've gotten everything where I want it, so I'm pulling. And then I'll pull the hinges this way. So I pull it each way, fold and burnish. And make sure all the folds are where they need to be. All right, so here's the underside. So now what I'm going to do is add glue. I've turned it over, and so what before was the mountain is now the valley. So I will add my glue in the valley. Oops. All right, so I've got glue in all of those valleys. I'm going to grab a surface to fold this on because I might get glue down. I'm turning it over, I'm not pushing it down, and I'm going to pinch those two hinges together. And if glue seeps out the end, I'm going to clean it up so I don't get it all over the place. Making sure that it is adhered way down to even the bottom of the hinge. Let's see if any seeped below. No, but this one is not. All right, now I'll take my bone folder and burnish. All right, this one's not coming out straight. Make sure everything's straight and lined up. And again, this Teflon-like, I guess we'll just call it non-stick because I don't know if it's Teflon. This non-stick bone folder does a great job because it doesn't, you know how sometimes you push on paper with a bone folder and it gets shiny? Well, number one, this is the artisan cardstock, so it works real well. And number two, this bone folder keeps it from getting shiny. Now I'll push it all one way and then all the other way. Okay, so now my hinge is good. I am going to put it aside and let it dry before I attach the hinge to the book. In the meantime, we've got it and it's dry and it's almost wobbly. So in order to take off the wobble, I cut down a piece of paper, I think it's 6 inches. 6.5. As long as it is an inch on each side, as long as it's at least 5 inches, then you're good, because you're helping to adhere this and keep it less wobbly. So you need at least an inch on each side. So this gives an extra little bit. And then since the height of the book is 8.5, I made it just, it's a hair less than 8.5, maybe 1/32 less than 8.5. So now that is going to be, I'm going to put this on. So I will add glue and then add that to here. So I'm going to actually add glue to the spine. Again, you want to be generous, but I don't want it to be sloppy. Now I'm adding some right next to the spine, or trying to, on both sides. I'm trying not to put it right in the spine. And then I'll add a little glue here and a little glue there. And to make sure I go all the way from top to bottom, I'm going to add glue around the perimeter of my cardstock. A little more to the center, and now I will carefully put this, measure it from the bottom to the top, put it down, and then I'm going to burnish it, and then we'll let that dry. If any glue seeps out, go ahead and clean it up. Okay, once the glue is dry, I'm going to take my bone folder and gently pull the book up so it's at an angle, and gently take your bone folder and push it in the seam where the cover and the spine come together. Make sure you do this once everything's dry, or else it's going to bubble up. So there's one, and we'll do the other side. So gently I'm training the paper to fold where I want it to fold. And then once you've gotten it, you can fold it either way. And again, you want to be pretty gentle here, because this is where the paper could tear, and you don't want to tear the paper. All right, now that I've got that, I'm going to figure out where I'm going to put my spine, my hinge system, sorry. So I'm just placing it down there, and there is 3/16 of an inch between the last hinge, or the first hinge, and the crease by where the paper, where the cover and the spine. And I'm going to go down closer to the bottom than the top. I'm leaving a bigger gap at the top, just in case I have anything that pokes up at the top. Now that I know where I want it, you could tape it down here and then put glue like that, but I can eyeball it pretty quickly, and the glue gives you a little bit of drying or time for movement. So I am going to put glue at the top, glue at the bottom, and I'm not going to put glue right at the end, because I want to have a little bit of room for where I want to put my fingers. But you can later on just add some glue in to there. So again, I'm putting it closer to the bottom than the top, and making sure there's as much room on the right side and the left side. And it looks pretty good to me. So now I'm going to take my fingers and start at the center. Of course, you want to make sure your fingers are clean. Then I'll fold the next hinge. And then I'll go to the one to the left of the center and fold the hinge and push the glue down. Then I'll go to the next one to the right, and then the next one to the left. You're working your way from the inside to the outside, and you push the hinge in at the same time, because that'll move the paper in a little bit, and that way you've got good contact below. All right, now I'm going to straighten the hinges and grab my bone folder. Now, I used to be afraid to do this because, again, if you have not the linen artisan cardstock, if you have some inferior quality paper, you'll see a shiny spot. And plus, I have this beautiful bone folder, and it helps keep a shiny spot from showing where you push down the paper. I know, I'm a little crazy when it comes to this. You may not be as anal as I am when it comes to that. I'm pushing right next to where the hinges are, just to make sure there's good contact. And moving the hinges from side to side again. All right, now I'm going to put the hinges one way and then turn them the other. And then I'll just grab a little bit of glue and put it under there. And burnish. And before I go any further, I'm going to let that all dry, and then I'll go ahead and work the hinge again one more time before I add the pages. So that is how we get the book together. I'm not going to bend it. I'm going to let it dry. Once it's dry, go ahead and grab your bone folder, go in that channel again, and then you've got a perfectly constructed book, and we're ready to move on. All right, so it is actually the next day, and everything is completely dry. So I am going to take my bone folder and go in the crevice between where the chipboard of the spine and the chipboard of the back cover are, and just go there, bend my book cover up, and just make sure that I've got some fluid movement. And we'll do so on the other side. So just take your time. You don't want to push so heavy that you're going to tear the paper. But listen, if worse comes to worse and you tear a piece, all you have to do is grab another piece and just glue it just a smidgen away from where the spine is and cover it. I mean, if you were to tear it, I would tear it all just so it would bend. Don't cry over torn paper. It will all work out. And then the other thing I do is I work the hinges. So I'll move them all one way and then move them the other way. And I'll take the edge of my bone folder and burnish real well in each direction a couple of times. I mean, I might take a good 5 minutes to work the hinge so it goes back and forth easily, because this is how you're going to make the book, the pages turn easily. So again, you just go back and forth. And then move them all one way. Move them all the other way. And just keep going until they move without a problem. All right. Once you're done with that, congratulations, you've made it this far and you have a beautiful book with a hinge. Now, the chipboard is 6.5 by 8.5. I want my pages to be 6 by 8. Some people like just 1/4 inch extra. I like 1/2 inch. So my pages will be 6 by 8. So you will cut a piece of 12 by 12 cardstock. You will cut it 8 inches and it'll be by 12. So you have an 8-inch by 12 piece of cardstock. I'm going to move this out of the way and grab my scoreboard. And the important thing, again, is to make sure that this is going to be straight. So I am going to make sure it's over at the side and over at the top. I'll take my bone folder and just simply score at 6 inches. And that is all we need. Now, you'll do 6 pages. I've already done the other 5. I just wanted to show you. So you see the score line? Now, I'm going to take it, so the indentation you see here, I'm going to take it and turn it over and fold into the bump. But listen, it's not that important. If I think of it, that's the way I choose to fold. But if you were to fold this way, it's not the end of the world either. I just feel like since we've already broken the fibers of the paper down here, if I go this way, it's going to be a crisper fold. But the important thing isn't really which way you go, because it's a minute difference. The important thing is that you still don't let the paper do what it wants. You're still training the paper to be straight. So that is more important than anything. So I'm going to fold it. I made sure it's straight up here. So I will burnish it on both sides. So you simply have a folder. This is the easiest page style I've ever done. And my thinking on this one is, it's a heritage album, and I really don't have anything, well, with the exception of a few letters or cards my kids wrote to my mom. I don't have anything that's really private and that I don't want to be seen on the outside. I don't want any hidden pockets. I want this to be an easy to figure out mini album. I just want it simple. So I'd rather everything be sort of front and center rather than tucked into pockets. Now, I have done ones in the past that they're pocket pages, but in this case, I'm not. So what I'm going to do is open up my little folder we made. I'm going to take my glue. I wonder if I could use a spacer at this point. So I'm just trying to see if a spacer will help. And I think it will. So I'm taking my smallest of the mini spacers. It is 6 inches, 5.5, I don't know. It's not 12. So I pushed this paper up against the hinge, and I'm doing the last page first. And then I'm putting my spacer down and pushing it to the left against the hinge. And all I'm using this for is to make sure my glue goes down in a straight line. It's not the worst thing in the world if it doesn't. But sometimes I have problems gluing in a straight line. And making sure my glue is going to actually work. Yes. All right. So again, my paper is up against the hinge. My spacer is up against the hinge. I'm holding it, and I'm just going to run a bead of glue. I know my paper's moved. And then carefully take that up. I want a little bit more glue, and that wasn't as close as I needed it to be. Yeah, sometimes I try things, see how that work. So I want to be about 1/8 of an inch away from the hinge. Okay, so now I'm pushing this up against my hinge. I'm going to go in a little bit closer so you can watch me a little better. Okay, so, and I'll put this so you can see where the top is. I'm going up against my hinge with this paper. Would be nice if I had a different color, but sorry. And then I'm going to fold my hinge down, push it down with my finger. I don't want it I don't want it down too far. Then I'm going to fold this side, and I'm going to move it out so there's about 1/16 of an inch left from where the fold of the hinge is to the edge of the paper. So now that I know I'm out about 1/16 of an inch, I'll push that down and burnish. And I will put glue here on this side. I'm not being so careful now because I know it's going to sit in there nicely. And I'm going to take this and move it, fold it over. Make sure that it's even top to bottom. I'm looking at the paper here at the bottom, making sure I have the same, maybe 1/8 of an inch, because remember I put my hinge down a little lower. If you didn't, it's no big deal. And here's when I realize I should have added glue to the bottom. I'm going to come out again. I should have added glue to the inside bottom. I'll do it right with the next one, but the important thing with this is that it was even. You always want the first page to be even. Now, since I forgot to do it, I'm going to just stick the tip of my glue in and just put a little bead of glue down there at the bottom. I am going to leave the top open, but we'll probably not use it at this point, but just in case I do want to. I can always close it up later. All right, I'm going to burnish that, and we've got a page in. If you wanted to, you could add lots more glue to inside, but really it's not going to matter that much. All right, we'll do the next one. I'll remember to put the glue in the bottom. So again, we'll put it up against the hinge. I'm not going to use the spacer because it didn't work so well. I'm going to put glue down and not put it right at the edge. I'm staying a little bit further away from the edge. To make sure it is even. And then I'll push my hinge down. I'll add, glue to this outside edge, which will be the inside edge. And then glue across the bottom here, so we seal it. That's what I meant to do last time and forgot. So now I'll fold this, make sure it's even. I'm going to pull it out a smidge, so you have to work sort of quickly. You don't want the glue to dry while you're lining it up. But I'll pull it out a smidge, make sure it's lined up on the bottom as well. Make sure it's even top to bottom. And then when I like how it is, I'll burnish here. I'm going to turn this over, burnish there, turn it back over and burnish the bottom where that glue is and make sure it stays. So there, we got 2 pages. Go back to the first one, make sure the glue is still adhered because we're moving it around a little. And then I'm going to go ahead and continue. I'll do one more with you, and then I will do the other in fast motion, because otherwise it's like watching glue dry. I'm not going to go to the very edge of the paper, because when I move it out this way, I'm not going to make a mess of glue. Push my hinge down, making sure that it's lined up top and bottom. Add glue to this side. And the bottom. And I'll fold this over, see where we are on the hinge, line up this to the bottom, make sure it's all nice and straight. It's looking good. I'm liking it. Beautiful. And you notice how it lays flat? That's the plan. There we go. Love it. Love it, love it, love it. All right, I will do the other 3 pages and put you on fast motion. You can pause and do your own. You can slow down the video. Go to that little little gear and you can change the speed. If you get bored of me, you can put it in fast motion, and that's a lot of fun sometimes. But go ahead and do that and put in your other pages, and I'll meet you at the end. Okay, now you see I'm going to go back and burnish. And one thing I want to make clear is that when you're putting the paper down, you're not going straight against the bottom of the hinge. You're leaving a little bit of wiggle room, so that way when you move the page, the insert that you just put in the page doesn't hit the gusset on the spine. Because it does, it'll won't move as nicely. So just stay about a 1/16, an 1/8 of an inch to a 1/16 of an inch away from the spine. And there we go. There is our book. Look at that. Lots of room. So I did leave these open. Again, you can go back in and close these if you want. I would save it for later in case we end up using that, because what you could do is if you were making a flap, you could always stick it in here and fold it down, and that way you don't have anything on the front here. But ultimately it's not that important. So go ahead and put in all your pages, let everything dry, and then we will be moving on to the next step, which is adding the different elements to the pages. We're going to do it page by page. So if there's an element that you like on page 1, you could repeat it on every page, or you could do it on 1, 3, and 5, whatever you want to do. It's your book. So let us continue forming the pages. Okay, so for page 1, we're going to have a flap coming from the right and 2 flaps coming from the left. So I cut 6 1/4 by 4, one of those, and 2 that are 5 inches by 6 inches. I'll go ahead and grab my scoreboard, and the 5 by 6 we're going to simply score 1/2 inch with the 5-inch side at the top. And the 6 1/4 by 4, I'm just turning it over just so it faces forward when I'm done scoring. You're still going to put the long side at the top and score at 1/2 inch. I'm going to grab some scissors and miter these corners. And let me just reiterate, if I haven't said it before, I am doing this based on the photos and mementos that I have available. If you have different size, cut it so everything will fit the papers that you have. What I did is gather most everything. I still have some photos that are out to be printed and some paperwork. I'm waiting for an actual birth certificate. I'm hoping to find when my grandfather came into the country, if I can get paperwork on that. Don't know if I can, but we shall see. So I'm simply going to stack these over here. Do I want to do? Yeah. And then the other one will go on the other side. So let us grab. I probably could have folded one and adhered it, but when I cut the paper, I wasn't sure what I didn't know I would do more than one page. No harm, no foul. So I will just center this on the side, on the page, not on the hinge. Does that make sense? So you're not going to put it on the hinge, you're putting it on the edge of the paper that we glued down for this page. And then this one is going to go on top of that. And I'm just stacking it as best I can. And then this one, I'm going to burnish this way. will go on the opposite side, and again I'm going to center it on the page. Now I noticed when I put these on, it's not exactly centered, but I'm going to center this on across the middle of this. It's a little bit shorter than the page, because if it was the same size as the page, it's going to sort of catch. So it's about a 1/16 of an inch shorter than the page. So we have this, and then this, and then we have that. Now I am going to add a magnet here. This front page isn't going to have anything. It's just going to be, I'm going to try to find something that says genealogy or something like that. So I can put a magnet here and a magnet there. And to remember to do that before I put on my paper, I will put a circle, whoops, and write magnet, and put a circle and write magnet. So I remember when I put that paper on to put the magnet on. So that is all I'm going to do for page 1. In the collection kit are these fabulous tags. So I'm going to make 2 side-loading pockets so we can use these tags. So out of the scraps, because we cut the paper 8 inches, so we have 4-inch pieces left over. So cut to 4 by 9. And then what we're going to do with that is we're going to take the short side at the top and score at 1/2 inch down the long side. Just for one of them. Both of them we're going to score 1/2 inch with the short side, I'm sorry, long side at the top, scored 1/2 inch. Now I'm going to miter the corners. I only need to do one side of the one that just has the 2 score lines. The other one miter the corners normal. I need to clean my scissors, I just realized. Alright, and now I'm going to fold and burnish on the fold lines. I want this to lay flat, so I'm spending a little more time scoring really the bottom one more so than the top one. Alright, let's grab the book, and this is going to be for the back of page 1. So what's going to happen is the one that's got the scores on 3 sides, the long tab will go close to the spine. And then this one will go, where's my, that's it. This one will go first, and then this one will go on top. So what I'm going to do first, bear with me because it makes sense in my head. I'm going to add some glue just on the long tab on the one that's scored on 3 sides. And then I'm going to make sure that this is going on the paper, not on the hinge. Put it on there, then I'll open it and burnish. Now, this is a new, whoops, I don't know what fell, but I'm grabbing some adhesive tape. Oh, my bone folder fell. And I am taking some tape and I'm going to put it over where the tab is. I had to pick up my bone folder, and I'll burnish that. So why are we doing that? I went a little bit over too exuberant with the tape, because now if you put something in this pocket, it's going to slide in easy. It's going to burnish it. It's not going to get hung up on the tab, on the, you know, where the paper starts. All right, I'm leaving that like that for this second, but I'm going to put this down. I'm going to glue this down first, then glue this on top. But what I want is to make sure this is right in the center. The edge of the paper is centered between the paper, the page, and that first one. Now, it doesn't have to be. You could have this closer if you wanted to, but I just like the look of it being centered. So I sort of know where I want it. I'm going to add glue. And it's okay that this pocket doesn't go all the way to the edge. It's not going to harm anything. You don't need a pocket to have a bottom to it in this case. Okay. I think that is pretty well even. So I'm going to burnish where I glued. And then add some glue to these tabs. Oops. And fold it over. Make sure it's matched up nicely. And burnish. Okay, so I've got two pockets here for the back of page 1. Okay, for the front of page 2, you're going to need 3 pieces of cardstock 6 by 8. One of them, we're going to put the long side at the top and simply score at 1/2 inch on the 6-inch side. The other 2, you're going to put the short side at the top and score on the long side at 1/2 inch. Easy schmeezy. Now I'm going to move my scoreboard out of the way, grab my scissors. Somebody remarked that these scissors are looking pretty shot. But you know what? If it works, don't fix it. They probably could use a cleaning. I noticed there's a lot of glue and stuff, so every once in a while I'll go crazy and grab either some antibacterial gel, or I have a bottle of lighter fluid, because I used to have Undo, but it's harder and harder to find, and I got lighter fluid. Butane, I guess it is. It doesn't work as well. I mean, it dries clear and doesn't leave a residue, but it doesn't dry as quickly as the Undo. Is it Undo? The stuff that takes out stickers but doesn't leave an oily residue. I forget what it's called. But in any case, I probably need to find something else, but that'll work in the meantime. All right, so this piece, I'm sorry, I want to score it a second time. So I scored that at 1/2 inch, also score at 3/4. I want to have a 1/4 inch gusset on that. And I don't mind that it's going to be shorter. I meant it for it to be shorter. I'm going to go ahead and burnish on those score lines. I am grabbing a corner rounder. If you have a decorative corner rounder, it would be lovely to use here. I do not have one in this, by the way. I got it at a garage sale, so I have had it in my stash for quite a while. I know Country Craft Creation sells some corner rounders, but you know, again, if what I have works, I don't really need to replace it with something else. But the instant that this stops working, I'm going to get a new one because I use corner rounders quite often. So I'm going to put it right at the top of the page. I am just going to line it up at the top and grab my bone folder and burnish. Okay, so there is that one. Is that straight? Yeah, that's fine. Okay. All right, one is going to go on the left-hand side, and the other one is going to go on the right-hand side. So I will go ahead and put this on the paper, on the base page, not on the hinge. I'll open this up and burnish. I've noticed that my corner did not stick down. Same with the other one, so I'll add a little glue to that. And when I'm burnishing this glue on the side, I will double check and make sure that it's tacked down as well. So I am going to line it up at the bottom and at the outer edge, making sure it is not going to impinge on this fold. Just make sure it is even. So we've got these pages and then this. And for here, you could do a swivel tab, you could do a circle closure, or you could do magnets. I haven't decided what I'm going to do yet. I might do magnets because that way I can keep this piece down as well. But I will once I'm decorating, I'll figure that out. So that was the front of page 2. Now we're going to do the back. Front of page 2? Now we'll do the back of page 2 next. All right, we're going to do the back of page 2 and the front of page 3 together. Sort of have, they'll sort of be similar. So for 2B and 3F, you're going to need one piece 4x6, one piece 4x4. Put those aside, we're not going to score those. And then you'll need 3 pieces that are 4x8 and one that's 3.5 by 8. These 4 pieces, the 4x8 and 3.5 by 8, you're going to score with the short side at the top at 1/2 inch. So all 4 of these, you'll simply put on the scoreboard and score at 1/2 inch. Alrighty, and now I'll go ahead and miter these corners. Yes, I do put them all together. I make sure that the fold line, the score line, is exactly where it needs to be. You can just tell by looking. And you can cut. It's safer if you cut each one individually, I'll tell you that, because your paper might be wonky, you might have it turned backwards. All sorts of things could happen. But I'm taking a chance today. So I'm going to fold and burnish on the score lines. All right, I'm going to grab the 3.5 by 8 and then one of the 4x8s. And we're going to put the 3.5 by 8 up to the left side of the back of page 2. So that'll go like that, right up against the edge. I love this paper. And then the other one, I'm going to put the fold on the right side and put that in the book as well. Again, you're going to put it on the base page, not on the hinge. I'm lining up the bottom of the paper and the top as well. Okay, now this page is going to have the 4x6 on it, but I am not going to put it on until I put paper under here. So I'm just going to leave that with it. Okay, and then simply for these, you're just going to put one on the left side and then one on the right side. And you're going to take that 4x4 piece and you're going to put it inside. I mean, just keep it with the page, and once we decorate, then we will go ahead and use that. But since we're not decorating this second, just put it aside. So that one will go like that. Okay, that is what we're doing with those pages. Sometimes when you're doing these mini albums with older pictures, the measurements are going to be unique. I have these photographs and they measure about 4.5 by 2 3/4. So they're not a standard size. Look at this picture. Oops. I don't know if it'll focus for you. Focus, son of a gun. Anyhow, see the guy in the back with the bottle of water, wine? I'm not sure what it is. But I believe, if I remember correctly, this was when the family took a trip to Florida. And they just stopped at pulled over the side of the road, and sometimes there's picnic tables, sometimes there's not, and they had a picnic because there was no fast food restaurants, so they had, it looks like, bread, probably wine. They're Mediterranean. I think they drink wine during the day. Hopefully he wasn't driving, or that could be water. I don't know. It's a great picture. But anyhow, so I've got 3 landscape and 2 portrait that I'm going to put all on one page. So I can put 2 of these at the top, and then the bottom I would like to do sort of a side waterfall. So what I did is I cut 3 pieces of cardstock, a 1/2 inch longer on the side, so I can just put the photographs down. I may put scrapbook paper on the top, but in any case, I cut the paper down 3 sheets that are 3 by 5 1/8, just because that was the right size. And I'm going to simply score these 3 with the long side at the top, score it 1/2 inch, And I probably need one other piece because I'm not going to put it right down on there. But before I put these on, I'm going to put decorative paper on. And I also cut one piece 6 1/4 by 3 to use as a base to put the waterfall on. So I folded and burnished. I'm going to burnish just a little bit more on the fold line. These 3 pieces. We don't need to miter those corners. When you do waterfall, you don't need to miter the corners. And I'm going to adhere this on, starting with the first one, go to the left. So I'll add my adhesive and put it on, lining it up with the side and the bottom. Okay, and now your next one you will line up so the edge of the second one will just touch the bottom score line, or not score line, the edge of the paper on the first one. Whoops. So that'll go just like that, lining it up on the bottom as well. And then your final piece. You will do the same. So we have these and the other photographs, and these are going to go on the bottom. And I see I will have to trim off a little bit on this, and that's okay. So I will. Oh, so I told you it was going to be 6 1/4. It's just going to be 6. So I'm just going to trim 1/4 of an inch off. Once I put the paper on, because I'm going to put the paper on first, then I'll put the portrait photos on the paper and then add the landscape photos on to that. So that is 3B. Oops, and wait, there's more. To keep this waterfall from flapping open, I'm going to put piece of cardstock and then add a magnet in the middle. So I cut a piece that's 3 by 3 1/2, because 3 is the height of this, and I'm going to score 1/2 inch on the side. Move that out of the way. Fold and burnish. And this time I'm going to fold, but then I'll open this up, add some glue. It's sort of on the inside flap. I'll push that down flat, push this up against it, make sure it's all lined up, and burnish. So this will be what goes down on the bottom of the page. So there we go with that. Again, I'll put this down once I've gotten the decorative paper down. Okay, for F, you'll need a piece 6 by 8 and a piece 4 by 6. We're going to score on both of them 1/2 inch. The 6 by 8, I will go ahead and I'm going to end up scoring here. So I will just score at 5 1/2. Doesn't matter if you score it here, you flip the paper, but since I wrote on it, I want the writing to be right side up. The 4 by 6, put the 4 inside at the top and score at 1/2 inch. Let us miter the corners. what do I do with all those little scraps? I throw them in a cardboard box. And as you know, I live and travel in my RV. And we camp. And it's not like we have campfires and s'mores every night. Maybe once a month. Maybe. I mean, our RV is our home, so what do you do in your home? You don't go out in the backyard and start a fire every night, do you? So I save those little scraps to start the fire. All right, so I'm going to put the 6x8 piece on the right-hand side, and the 4x6 will go on the left-hand side. Go ahead and add some glue. And I'm sorry, you saw me, I was talking, but don't forget, we're going to fold and burnish on those score lines. I didn't think I had to tell you because you've been following me for a while. You knew I was going to say that. All right, fold and burnish. I don't know what that white piece is, but it'll be covered, or dark piece. And then same with this. And that'll go over here. Now the reason I wanted this way, I wanted to do a ta-da, you know, a wow moment. So I have this photograph, and I have another one I have to dig up, and I don't know if I still have it, but it's a wedding picture. And I just thought that the wedding photo should go, number one, it should be protected from dust, fingerprints, whatever. And it's a beautiful old-timey picture, so I wanted it to, you know, be one after you open some things. It is not my mom. This is my Uncle Frank and Uncle Richard, Aunt Teresa, Aunt Mary. Somewhere is a picture of my mom and dad's wedding. I am not sure if that is still around, but I'm going to put this there for now and hope that I can dig that picture up. So again, I wanted, that's what it is, it's pictures. I wanted, yeah, this way. So then you don't see the picture, you open it up and then it's like, wow. So that's why I did that. So that is the front of page 4. We're moving along, aren't we? Now we're going to do the back of page 4. Okay, for the back of page 4, it's going to get a little complicated, still easy, but more complicated. Just, I like the crescendo, or the fireworks. You build up, and then like this, and this, and this. And then it calms down at the back page. So that's why I start getting a little more complicated as we get to the back. All right, let me tell you what you'll need. You'll need a piece 4x7, 5x6, 5.5x6, 5.5x8, 3.5x11. And let us get our scoreboard. The 3x11 is really easy. We're going to score that in half at 5.5. The 5.5x8, we're going to put the 8-inch side at the top, score at 1/2 inch and 3/4. 5x6, you'll put, 5.5x6 with the 5.5 inch side at the top, score at 1/2 inch. The 5x6 you're going to score on 3 sides. So you'll score with the 6-inch side at the top, score at 1/2 and at 5.5. Rotate, and with the 5-inch side at the top, score at 1/2 inch. The 4x7, we're going to score 1/2 inch with a 4-inch side at the top, score 1/2 inch down the 7-inch side. Okay, we are going to miter the corners. Miter through the X's on the bottom here. Miter this. And when you're mitering this piece that's got the 2 score lines, you'll just miter at the 1/2 inch. And do not miter the 3.5 by 11 inch side. Alrighty. The 3.5 by 11, we're just going to fold in half and burnish and just put that aside. We will go ahead and fold and burnish on the 2 score lines on the 5.5 by 8 inch piece. We'll fold and burnish all of them, including this one piece that has the 3 score lines on it. And the 4 by 7. Okay, we're going to take the piece, the 5 by 6 and the 5.5 by 6, and we're going to put the 5 by 6 onto the 5.5 by 6. First, we're going to adhere it at the bottom. So I'll just take that and line it up at the bottom. And just make sure it's nice and even on all 3 sides. And go ahead and burnish. Now, it's open there. So I've done this before. But we're going to take some tape and put it on the bottom, just so things don't get snagged when you put it in there. And then we'll go ahead and glue down the other tabs. Okay, now this 5.5 by 8, this piece is going to go on there. I'm going to center it on the page. So I will add the adhesive and center it center it on the left hand side. So you have the same amount on the top as you do on the bottom. Okay, and this 4 by 7 inch piece is going to go on the right hand side of that 5.5 by 8 inch piece, and just have it closer to the bottom than you do to the top. So I'll fold that, burnish it, so we have that. Now we're going to take this piece, so you'll put glue on that tab, and center it in the left center of the page, and there will be about 1/4 of an inch on each side. I'm opening it up and making sure it's lined up fairly straight. And there we go with that. So this will open like this and like that. Then that closes and this opens like that. Did I need the 1/4 of an inch at the top. Not necessarily, but I'm going to also put a pocket down here. Oh, you know what else? This will go, this piece goes in the pocket here. So it gets pretty busy. Okay, stop the presses. On the larger piece, I had you scored 1/2 inch and 3/4. Hopefully you saw the note up above that I'm changing that, and I'm just going to score it 1/2 inch. Now I'm leaving this the way it is, but I'm going to put it on. I was going to add more pockets underneath it, but I decided against that. Really don't need it. So I'm going to put this on again. I'm putting it about 1/4 of an inch away from the left-hand side, making sure it's straight on the top, and putting it back on. So even though you see on this piece, you see the score line, once we cover it up with paper, you will not see that. Just a little oops. I was planning on doing something a little more complicated, and then decided just to keep it a little more simple, and I left it that way. So that is the back of page 4. Okay, for the front of page 5, you'll need 3 pieces, 12 by 4, so again, you should find that in your scraps from cutting the base page, 5 by 6, and 4 by 6. So let us grab our scoreboard. And the 12 by 4, I'm going to put the 12-inch side at the top and score at 7. The 5 by 6, we will score at 1/2 inch with the 5-inch side at the top. And the 4 by 6, you're going to put the long side at the top and score at 1/2 inch. The 4 by 6 and 12 by 4, we're not going to miter those corners. We're not going to miter those corners. The 5 by 6, we can go ahead and do that. And let's fold and burnish on our score lines. And fold and burnish on the 12-inch piece of paper. All right, so the 12-inch paper, what we're going to do is take this 4 by 6 piece and glue it, have the tab. You'll just take the tab and put it underneath this piece so it'll open like this. So we'll put glue on the inside of the tab, and just simply push this up against that piece, make sure it's even on the sides, and burnish. Fabulous. Now this we're not going to put down until we put our pattern paper down, and when we put it down, we're going to only adhere it at the top and the bottom, because then it will create a tuck spot underneath. But we will take this 5 by 6 piece and also, so we've got this all together. I'm going to take the 5 by 6 and put it right on top, turn it over, and you've got this tab facing up. I'm going to open it a little bit, move my scrap paper out of the way, and add glue and center this top to bottom, push that tab over, burnish it. So now you've got this piece will open like this. This will come down and that will come up. But again, I'm not going to put this down until after I've put my pattern paper down. So that is that. All right, now we're working on 5B and 6F, and I'm going to do the same thing for both pages. So what I'm going to do is simply have pockets going across identical. And the reason I'm doing that is, number one, I'm waiting for photographs from family members, and I don't know what size they are, don't know when I'm going to get them. So until I do, I'm going to use these fabulous tags that are in the collection. Now with Country Craft Creations collections, these, you get 2 of each of these. The back is a muted design, but if you wanted to put these on cardstock, again, if I was keeping away from the Valentine's theme, there's 6 of these that I could do front and back, or do 3 separate ones, but I'll probably do 6. I think I will, but I don't know. I love the detail in them with the sort of stitching around the side. So, easy schmeezy. We're going to need 2 pieces of 7 by 2 and 2 pieces 7 by 3.5. Let me move this out of the way, grab my scoreboard. And for the 7 by 3.5, I'm going to score on 3 sides. We'll put the long side at the top, score at 1/2 inch, rotate, and then score at 1/2 inch, rotate, score 1/2 inch, rotate. So we have the score on 3 sides. I'll do that with the other 7 by 3.5. And then the 7 by 2, you're just going to score 1/2 inch on both of the short sides. So you'll put the long side at the top and score at 1/2 inch. All right, and that's really all the scoring we're going to do for that. I'll grab my scissors, and we will miter on all the tabs. Oops, the paper slipped away from me, but it's okay. And of course I'm just cutting through the X's there and cutting there. On the 7 by 2, I'm really just mitering the top because the bottom's going to be not seen. So we'll just miter the top. All right, now I'll grab my bone folder and I will fold and burnish. And just get a nice crisp fold on these and put in there. I don't know exactly what pictures. I just was told by my cousins that they have some pictures of my mom, and I'll have to wait and see. So I don't know if it'll work chronologically or not, but you know, it doesn't matter. There's a story. Yeah, my cousin had these pictures, and we'll see. But the good thing about using pockets like this is if you don't know what size photographs you're going to get. I mean, obviously, if you get something too big, something bigger than maybe a 7 by 10, that's not going to work. I'm taking the bigger piece and putting the tab at the bottom, just the bottom, going over away from the spine, the hinge system, and trying to match it to the bottom. And I'll do the same for the other one. So yeah, it doesn't matter if you get 5x7s, they're also going to fit into this kind of pocket. You can just stick them in the pocket. And it doesn't necessarily have to be for photographs. If there were newspaper articles or just mementos from or travels. All right, now I'm going to grab a piece of tape and I'm going to put it along the bottom, and again, so that way if you were to stick something in the pocket and my paper doesn't go down and cover it, it's not going to get hung up on where that paper goes down. Okay, now I need to see where this is going to go. Of course, I'm going to line it up. And what I'm going to do is grab a pencil and figure out exactly where this is going to go. And just put this down and then glue this right on top of it. Easy pockets. I mean, there's more complicated ways of doing it, but yeah, let's make it easy. So using that line as a guide, I'm going to make sure the paper is straight across. If you have a T-square, it would help right now, but I'm pretty good. It's pretty good. So we'll take that and burnish, and then take the tabs on the bottom pocket and just glue that right there. All right, we'll do the same with the other side, and I'll line this up with the one on the right side. And again, keep it closer to the outside of the page rather than the inside. You don't want it to get hung up on the hinge system. And once you get decorative paper on pockets, they look fabulous. Just adds a nice amount of detail. Now you may notice these did not line up properly. I just didn't do a good job of lining them up. But you know what, that's okay. Once you put the decorative paper on, you make sure that's lined up, and then that will look fabulous. All right, I know it's hard to see, but we've got 2 pockets, and it just makes a nice presentation. If you wanted to, you could put a flap over, but at this point I'm getting a little concerned that I'm not going to have as much paper as I need, so I'm just going to leave it the way it is. All right, so that was 5B and 6F. All right, 6B and back inside cover. The 6B, I am leaving blank. I am just going to put, I have a family portrait that's 5x7 that's going to go on this back page. So I'm going to leave this blank, just put some decorative paper and photo mats and call it a day. For the back inside cover, so what I usually like to do is add a pocket with a flap on it, and this is where you can put all of those extra photos or mementos or even 3D things that don't fit into the rest of the book. So I cut 2 pieces of cardstock, one that is 7 3/4 by 6 5/8, and one that is 7 5/8 by 4 5/8. And they made it so the width of the book is 6 1/2. So instead of going 7 1/2, I went a little smaller, but I am going to have a little bit of a gusset. It's going to have a little more depth, just 1/8 of an inch. Just because I found that at the back of the book, I don't have as much room here. If I had one less page, then I would make it 3/8 of an inch, but I'm just going to make it 1/8 of an inch thick. I'll show you what I mean. So let's grab our cardstock. The 7 5/8 by 4 5/8. It's going to go on the bottom. It's going to be the pocket. So we're going to score at 1/2 an inch and at 5/8. Going to rotate, score at 1/2 an inch end at 5/8. And same here, the short side, 1/2 inch, whoops, am I against the side, and 5/8. So generally, whatever the depth is on your pockets, you want to continue for the top flap, but you can make the top flap a little thicker because it's obviously going to be on the top. I'm going to go 1/2 inch and 1/4 and 3/4 of an inch. So there is a 1/4 inch gusset here. And I'm also going to grab my corner rounder, just because I have this thing that, did that one come out okay? If it's a flap, I like the bottom to be rounded. Now, what we're going to do is put this on, and I'm also going to put on the circle closures with the string on here. And I'll show you how to do it, but you actually do it with the decorative paper. So let me miter where we need to. So I'm going to go ahead and miter at the 1/2 inch tab. Don't go to that second score line. On here, you're going to miter to the inside cross. So not the one furthest from the outside of the paper, but closest to the inside. So should I have, that doesn't matter. Okay, on here we're just going to score at the 1/2 inch. And I'll grab my bone folder and we will fold and burnish. So here is the top flap, fold and burnish, and the bottom flap. Sometimes it's a little tricky folding and scoring when you've got that little 1/8 of an inch gusset, but if you're just careful about how you fold it, you'll get it. It's not difficult, it's just tricky. Okay. All right, so we're going to put the bottom on, and make sure you're going only up to that first score line. Don't glue down the second score line. And I'm going to go closer to the edge of the book rather than have it get hung up on the hinge. I'm going to make sure this is even at the bottom. And it is. So I'll burnish that down, grab some tape, and tape that. Now, since I've got so much paper, I'll probably cover the inside with some paper, but I'm not too worried about it this second. All right, and here, now I'll go ahead and put the flaps in. And again, make sure you've got that gusset, the 1/8 of an inch gusset. It just gives you a little extra room. And again, I normally would do a larger gusset for a book like this, but just the way I put the book together, I didn't have much room. I'm making sure that's down, and we're pretty good with that. Okay, and then this, we're simply going to glue the top down. Turn it upside down, make sure my lines are at the top. And I realize before I glue it down, I probably should have cut this paper down. So I said it was 7 3/4. Nope, too much. So 6 1/4 is what this should be cut to. 6 1/4. All right, I'm going to show you how to do this circle style closure for this pocket. Now, I'm not using this blue paper, but since I haven't gotten to decorating the mini album, I'm just going to use it to illustrate so you can see what I'm doing. So I have a 1/2 inch round punch, and I'm going to take my base cardstock, and somewhere, well, I dropped one, I'm going to cut 4 circles out of it. So 4 circles. I'm going to glue 2 together, so I'll have 2 sets of 2. 1, 2, then I'll take it and make sure that it's round. Now, if I was going to, I'm going to use the decorative paper and do one more layer and put it on here. Or leave it plain, whatever you want to do. I'm going to take the cardstock. I haven't attached it to the paper, but I'm going to. I guess first what I'll do is make a hole. Now, if you are not good at eyeballing, then make a dot and figure out exactly where the center of this is. And don't forget, we're going to have, this will have a piece of decorative paper on it. All right, so I have a hole. And I'm assuming that this cardstock is where I want it to be. So I'm going to put one and center it. Now you can measure it if you want and figure out where the center point is. And I'm coming up about 3/4 of an inch to the hole. So 1/2 inch from the bottom of the circle to the bottom of the flap. And I'll make a mark and put that where you want it to be. And then I want to have the same space. I want it to be spaced evenly, so it's good top and bottom, and now I know exactly where my holes are going to be. So on here, I'm going to make a hole with my hole punch. On this one, because it's in the center of the paper, will this reach? Yes, it will reach. Sometimes it doesn't. If it doesn't reach, I just take a pokey tool and just poke a hole in it. But in this case, it had good reach. All right, now, and I'm doing this before the cardstock or the decorative paper is attached. I'm going to grab my string. It's 10 or 12 inches. I just make it long and then cut it down. I put it through the hole from the front, and I'm going to grab a little bit of tape, turn this over, and I'll just spread the fibers a little bit of the string. You could use baker's twine, you could use ribbon, and I tape this down. When I'm adhering this paper, I will add glue a little bit too. So I have the string coming out the front. Now I'll take one of my circles and I'll take a brad. Now you could use an eyelet if you wanted to. Brads are much easier. And I'm going to put that brad through the hole, turn it upside down, and there we go. I'm going to use this pencil eraser just to push it down. So now I can glue this cardstock down. Then I'm going to take the other hole, the other circle with the hole, and the other brad and put it in through here, and we're done with that. Then I'm not going to do it because this is not the color I'm going to use. Glue this down, glue this down. It doesn't look right because my paper's wonky, but you get the idea. Then you can go ahead and close it. And at the end of the string, you could put a little charm. You could simply knot it. You could grab 2 pieces of maybe a sticker, like 2 small hearts or something, and put it at the end. You can add a little glue at the end just to make sure it doesn't fray. You can do whatever you want. But that is how I attach my circle style closure at the back of my mini album. Now also, if you didn't want to do this, you could use a magnet. You could just leave it plain, because really it's going to usually be stood up like this and things won't get out of it. But if you wanted this decorative element of the circle closure, you could do that. So I just wanted to show that to you because people have asked me how to do that, and that is the way that I do it. And that is it. We are done with making all of the elements that go into this large mini album. So if you'd like, go back to the beginning and check out the walkthrough, or it might be in a different video. I'm not sure where it is at this point, if you want to see some of the details. If you have any questions on how I did something, please put it in the comments. I try to answer the questions within a day or two. It depends on where I am with my internet, but I certainly will get back to you and help you get through making this. I did do a little more customization because I knew exactly what photos I was going to use. So don't you forget that if you have certain photos and one flap or whatever is not going to work, change the size of it to go with your photos. I thank you so much for watching and hanging with me. I really appreciate it. Don't forget to check Country Craft Creations for all of the supplies. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't. Go ahead, subscribe, hit that like button. It'll take a second and it really helps me out. And again, I want to say thank you for spending your time with me. I know that you have many other choices, but I'm glad today you chose me. Thanks so much. Have a fabulous day.